Well, good morning and happy Sunday. My name is Matt, and I'll be hosting Church Online today. Wherever you are, we'd love to connect with you. So I'm going to throw up this QR code, and you can scan that for all the ways that we are looking to bring the church to you online. We're going to get started here soon with a time of worship, but I'll be checking back in for some community time in just a little bit. So we'll see you then.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, if you're out in the atrium, we'd love to invite you to come into service. Welcome, everybody online. My name is Benji Craig. And if you're new here, we've got some cards in the back of the seat. If you can fill them out and just let us know that you've been here, welcome. And let's go ahead and start with some worship.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Pastor Ty. I'm the worship pastor here. If you're able, would you stand and join us as we sing? Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, the shepherd boy. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were providing then, you are providing now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You moved in power then, God move in power now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a healer then, you are a healer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You were a savior then, you are a savior now. You are the same God, you are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Yes, I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Well, thank you so much for joining us in worship. We're going to continue to worship with a time of community.
That means we're going to have some questions up on the screen. You can feel free to ask those to the people around you, get to know each other, and then we'll continue on with our gathering after that.
Well, hey church, we have a couple of community time questions this week. Feel free to share your responses in the chat, and again, feel free to scan this QR code to get connected to all the ways that we are trying to bring the church to you online. I'm gonna take down this QR code now, but feel free to scan it. I'm gonna read these questions here. Of course, we'll ask the same questions that we do every week. What are you stressed about and what are you thankful for? And then our two questions specific to this week. If a movie was being made about your life, what actor or actress would play you? And then our deeper question, what is a story that inspires you? Again, feel free to put your responses down in the chat. Let's see, what am I stressed about? What am I thankful for? I am stressed. Both my wife and I weren't feeling well this morning, and so she is at home with our daughter, and she's still not feeling well, and so it's stressing me out to know that she is having a tough morning, and that that she is just alone with our daughter right now. I wish I could be there and help. And we have some family coming over later, and so after church, I'm really excited to be able to go home and to be with her and play dad for a while, or be dad for a while. I am thankful because my wife and I got to travel this last week. My parents watched our daughter, and so we were able to travel and just take a mental break because both my wife and I work full time and have really just jumped back into life after the birth of our daughter, and so really thankful for that time and the people who have supported us through that. So I see Alan has jumped in the chat. It says Shang-Chi would play me. I can't remember the actor's name. I'm blanking on it right now, but I feel like that would be a really good fit. I also see Caitlin and Debbie in the chat saying, "Happy Sunday, glad you guys are here." I'd say if a movie was being made about my life, I feel like Tom Holland might be a good pick. Or if it's me later in life, maybe Chris Pratt. We'll see. I don't know. I'm swinging kind of high there. But a story that inspires me. I'm going to share a fictional and kind of a real life example. But feel free to share either. A story that inspires me is something like Star Wars, where light is overcoming darkness, or something like Rocky Balboa, where someone is overcoming adversity. And I feel like that also carries over into my example for real life. Is anytime that someone is overcoming adversity and still seeing God through that testimony really speaks powerfully to me. And we had a young adult in our congregation pass away recently, and to hear his mom still praising Jesus and talking about his baptism and the person that he was really inspiring to me. I was moved to tears, actually, to hear her still praising God in the face of adversity. And it's not the first time that someone in our congregation has passed well before their time from an unfortunate accident. And man, just to hear that God is still at the center of it all, it's just so inspiring to me. So we're gonna be jumping back into our church gathering here in just under a minute, but feel free to continue to put your responses in the chat and we can continue the conversation. So I'll go ahead and throw it back to our folks in person.
All righty, we're going to continue with a couple announcements here, and I think they're going to be up on the screen. So we've got a couple announcements on tomorrow at 7 p.m. here out in the atrium. We're going to have an update from Michelle Omar. So if you're interested in work with refugees or what Michelle's doing, please come out tomorrow 7. We'll have some coffee and dessert for you guys. Please join us then. Next thing, we are going to be outside next week. We're going to have service outside. So come prepared. It's the last one of the summer that we're going to be doing service outside. And then lastly, we are going to have, on the 15th of September, we're going to have baptisms. So if anybody is interested in getting baptized, please reach out to Eric E. Hayes at Fremont.Church for that. So really excited about that. And then I want to introduce Nahme. She's a friend of mine, friend of a few of us at FCC, and she's going to be sharing the message with us today. And she's on a book tour. She just wrote a book called I Didn't Survive. So welcome, Nahme.
Wow. Well, thanks for having me. I have watched some of your services online. So I watched Benji's dad, I forget your name, Steve, and Jessica, and Pastor Eric, and I got to know a group of a team from here in Kansas City. I'm going to keep those secrets of their behavior. Let's just say there was a lot of food discussions. But I just really have felt, just getting to know some of the leadership, I just has felt like home, and some of the messages have just really touched my heart and just feel really connected here. I actually was born in Iran. I don't know how many of you know my story. I know some of you have read my book, but there's more books out there, which Eugene will talk about more. Eugene is from a ministry I work with called Back to Jerusalem that works in the 1040 window, including Iran, Afghanistan. And so I was actually born in Iran. I was born into a very strong Muslim family. My last name is Shariat Panahi, which means protector of the Islamic law. Shariat is the Islamic law. Panahi is protector. So that was like a big deal in our family that we were related to the Prophet of Islam. We are Shia Muslims. We were Shia Muslims. So Shia Muslims really pride themselves in the lineage going back to the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad. And so that was our identity, that we were just like strong Muslims, and especially my dad's identity. And 2 years after I was born, the Islamic Revolution happened. So Islam came 600 years after Christianity. So Persia, or what it's called now is Iran, has been Muslim for 1,400 years, but only in 1979 did it become an Islamic nation, meaning that the law of the land was Islam. So if you didn't fast during Ramadan, that was criminal. You could go in prison and be lashed. So you had to follow Islamic law, including the coverings. So that was the law of the land. Whereas before 1979, they didn't have to follow Islamic law, even though most people were Muslim. And so that's the environment I grew up in, Islamic environment, then the Islamic Revolution, where we were indoctrinated with Islam in schools. I went to school there till 4th grade. And my dad, of course, being a strong Muslim, really thinking the Islamic Revolution was going to change Iran, was going to make Iran a better place. And then the war happened in 1980, the war with Iraq, and that's a lot of where my memories come from. Just from the time I was a toddler, I just remember bombs and missiles and sirens going off, lights being turned off, my dad taking us to the bomb shelter, which was the basement of our apartment. And as a little kid, I didn't really have a childhood. I just questioned. I had a twin brother. I still have a twin brother. And we questioned, who is God? Why is he allowing this? We would go to school and, you start making friends. And I would have a best friend. And then I would go to school and she was missing. And then I would look at the rubble that was the apartments next to us and wondering if that's where she's at, because the Iraqi airplanes would drop the bombs. And so we really didn't know if we were going to be alive the next day. or our parents were going to be alive, or our friends. And I remember actually the first time we came to the United States, when someone said, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" I was like, I never thought about that, because I never thought about growing up. And so that was the environment I was raised in, and very Islamic. And then the war got so bad that my dad really was fearful of what was like the chemical warfare that was happening. And then my brother was being brainwashed in the school to go to war and die in the jihad and the Islamic war as like a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. They would say, little boys could go and run through the mines, and then the soldiers would go in, and parents couldn't say no, that if they did, it was like against the Islamic government. And so my dad was really afraid, and we moved to the States. And soon after we moved to the States, my brother came running to me. And my brother, fast forward, has gotten his doctorate in quantum physics at the University of Chicago. He is like mathematical. Didn't see him cry during the war. We had deep discussions, but no tears. I see him crying, like not just crying, weeping. And I'm like, what happened? And he runs to me. He's like, Nagme, I found the God we've been looking for. His name is Jesus. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was so his vision of Jesus really impacted me, because I'd never seen him that emotional. And, part of my hope through this testimony is that you could get the Bible says we overcome in the Revelation by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, and that through God's testimony in my life and how he's worked in my life, you can also see a glimpse, and God would be glorified, and you can just see the reality of who God is. And he is such a mighty, amazing God. And so my brother, that's how we found Jesus. My brother had a vision, and I was like, okay, let's go find out who this Jesus is. We found, we had people that told us about who Jesus was. We got baptized in that community pool, and we were given a Farsi Bible, because at that time we did not know English. And we were actually in San Jose. And so there was a good Farsi Iranian population where we were at, and we have family there. And so we were given a Farsi New Testament, Psalm New Testament. So I started reading the Bible, and I got to Psalm 2, where it says, today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for my inheritance. And that's how I got into Psalm 2 before my mom came home, and we were all excited. We told them, and my dad was traveling. We said, we've become Christians. This is, and my mom got really, really mad. And she said, you've lost your culture. Your dad's going to be so mad. And my dad came from his travel, and he was going to move us back to Iran, because he said, it's worse. You becoming Christian is worse than the war. I wish we would have all died in the war. Like, what happened now is he was very angry. And so we were considering moving back to Iran. My dad was. And my brother, I remember crying. He was saying, well, I don't want to go back. I don't want to die in jihad. I'm a Christian now. I believe in Jesus. And my dad would like, be quiet. He was like so upset. And my brother was just standing his ground about his faith. And so we had an uncle that had found a job at Micron in a place called Boise, Idaho. And he told my parents, like, hey, Boise, Idaho seems in the middle of nowhere, which it was. We kind of moved to farmland. And where we were at was like the edge of Boise, where there was like nothing out there. And they said, that your kids are only 9 years old. They're going to forget about this Jesus. And my uncle told my dad, like, you can de-brainwash them back to Islam. They don't know. And the reason my parents moved us from San Jose to Idaho was they didn't believe that my brother had a vision. They thought it was the California Christians converting us. So they moved us to Idaho. That's why we ended up in Idaho, and we've been there for 37 years. And so long story short, being immigrants, the goal was we had to become doctors of some sort, either engineers or medical or whatever, to live the American dream, to make good money, and just forget about the past, the war, all that was happening, just live our life here and look for a better future. And I was in college, ready to go to medical school. I was finishing my pre-med. My brother was about to go to continue his degree in mathematics, quantum physics, and chemistry. Those were his things. And it was during that time that God started softening my heart and speaking to me to go back to Iran. And soon after September 11th, so I'm skipping a lot of parts, but a lot of these details are in my book, but right around September 11th, God was already moving in my heart that I needed to go back to Iran, which seemed crazy. We'd left this war-torn country. Like, why would I go back? I had kind of forgotten the language. And people when I tried to speak Farsi, I was being made fun of. Like, you have an accent, like, what's your problem? How come you can't speak your language well? Like, people would get upset that I wasn't speaking Farsi well. So it was like a country I'd forgotten about. I was like focused on the U.S. And after September 11, I just felt like God was saying military and war is not going to fix the Middle East, is the gospel. And so October of 2001, end of October of 2001, so about a month after September 11, I went back to Iran. And I'm going to share this testimony because it is a testimony, even though being vulnerable. When I went back, Iran had been killing a lot of Christians. There was a lot of martyrs, Brother Haik, Brother Dibaj. I was really afraid. I mean, at that time, not a lot of people were flying airplanes because that's how September 11 happened, and no one was flying into the Middle East. So here I was on like a one-way ticket into Iran, and President Bush at that time was talking about war and things. And so I have to admit, I was so afraid of being arrested that as I was entering Iran, on the immigration paper, it said, "Are you Christian or Muslim?" And I wrote Muslim. And I was just by myself. I was so afraid of the possibility of being arrested. And when I landed, I was so remorseful. And I was so like, God, I denied you. I carried that for a few years until as I entered Iran. So in the 90s, there was a lot of Christians being killed, a lot of martyrs, and the blood of the martyr is the seed of the church. Early 2000, when I went back, that's when revival in Iran happened. And if any of you know anything about Iran, it's one of the fastest growing nations for Christianity right now. So I got to enter at the time where revival was happening. All these Christians had been martyred. All these Christians were being killed. Iranian government was trying to get rid of Christianity completely. And as they were getting rid of Christians, there was more popping up. And all of a sudden, there was a big wave of revival when I went. And I got to be the leader of one of the largest house church movements in Iran. And I met my husband there. And a few years into it, and I carried this weight with me because no one knew what I had written on the immigration paper except me and God. But I carried the weight. And a few years into it, I was arrested. And all the things I feared was right in front of me. I had people, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards with guns and being threatened to be killed. And I was told after being arrested and taken from interrogation to finally to this top interrogator, I was told, if you say Muslim, you're going to go free. If you say you're a Christian, you're going to die. And in that moment, God gave me the boldness to say I'm Christian. And it's interesting, in the airplane, I was afraid of what might happen. But in that moment, it was actually happening, where God gave me the boldness to say I'm a Christian. And I explained this more in my book, but that moment was so crucial in my walk with Christ because that person ended up crying. The top interrogator ended up having tears and asking for a Bible. And God showed me that if my time is not, like, he has a time where we're supposed to be on earth. When the time is up, no human gets to decide that. So in that moment, a lot of fear left me because I knew at that moment, I'm going to die. But God's like, no, your time's not up. So no evil can touch you. So in Iran, before that moment, I struggled with a lot of fear. I was always paralyzed with fear. What if this happens? What if especially as a Christian girl, what if I'm raped? What if this happens? And at that moment, I was like, I got all these threats. I had guns pointed to my head, but it was not my time. And so I just trusted God's timing for my life and didn't look to human threats. And so the rest of the time I was in Iran, there was this peace over me. You can't touch me if God doesn't want me to go. And so we saw the house church movement grow rapidly. We were, I want to share something that, again, gives you a glimpse through my testimony about who God is. I always question, what about people who've never heard about Jesus? What happens to them? That was always a question in the back of my mind. And when I went to Iran, I would just meet with people And we would pray who we should evangelize to, because there's a lot of secret police. But then I would meet with people, and that God would show me, and I would say, hey, do you know who Jesus is? Because in Islam, they have a book of surah, like Mary, Book of Mary. So there is some knowledge of those who read the Quran. Not a lot of people do, but those who read it and have a little bit of knowledge of Jesus as a prophet. So I would just ask, like, do you know who Jesus is? And then immediately I would get, so many times, I would get, yes, my child was dying, and I cried out to God, and Jesus appeared to me. And he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am God. And so they said, we've been looking for a Bible. Like, we believe in him. We're looking for a Bible. So that moment, it just, like, God just showed me whoever cries out to him whoever is seeking truth will find him. It's not related to a missionary or Bible or anything. Like, God will reveal himself the same way he did to our family, to me and my brother. And just showing who he was. And so I got to see a lot of miracles in Iran. There's a lot of stories about just seeing people come to know Christ, and how the house church movement just spread. And then because of intense persecution, we came to America. My husband had never been, and I had my kids, and we went through a season of just working, and the house churches kind of became a distant thing. And after a few years, my husband went back to kind of try to connect back with the house churches, and he was arrested in 2012. And that's when a lot of people got to know who I was. That's when I kind of became more of a public image. I was on the news a lot. When my husband was in prison in Iran, Saeed Abedini, I was like on Fox News, CNN. I had President Obama fly to Boise, and I met him. I had a call from Donald Trump to come to New York, and I met with him. I spoke at our Congress 3 times. I spoke at the United Nations. I spoke at the European Parliament twice, Dutch Parliament, German Parliament, anything. I was meeting with heads of states, and God just opened this crazy door where close to 1 billion people heard the gospel. Every single time I shared on CNN, Fox, New York Times, I was writing articles for Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. Every single time I was sharing about who Jesus was, because God really spoke to me that through Saeed's imprisonment, which was one of the hardest times in my life. I was a single mom now, trying to get my husband out of one of the worst prisons in the world. God revealed to me that I'm going to use this for the gospel. And then one of the crucial moments that goes back to my childhood is when I was at the United Nations in Geneva. I had to write, I was going to advocate for my husband. They were giving me time to talk to the United Nations ambassadors, to the president, to the vice president. I was facing them. I had written a speech that they had to approve, but I had a separate piece of paper that I had scribbled the gospel on, because the UN had to approve what I could and could not say in the meeting. My speech had to be approved, and so I had written a separate one. And you can still Google my name, Nagme Abedini UN speech. So here I was sitting, and I start talking about how my husband was in prison in Iran. And as I was saying that, start sharing the gospel, because because my husband believes that Jesus Christ died for us, and this is what the Christians believe. And I was sharing the gospel that, Jesus came to die for our sin. Whoever believes in him will not die and will have everlasting life. And as I was sharing the gospel, I was looking at all these ambassadors from all these different countries, all these different faces, and they had their earpiece on, and I saw all the translators up on top. Like there was a glass room up there, and you could see all the translators translating into these ambassadors hearing. And God touched my heart and just reminded me and said, you have been praying since you were 9 years old, because that's the age I had the Bible, and my parents took it away. The only prayer I remembered to pray was, God, give me the nations for my inheritance. Because in Psalm 2, when it said, today I have begotten you, I took it for myself, like, oh, I've become a child of God now, and I'm going to ask him for the nations. And I remember sitting in the UN, and God just reminding me, you've been praying since you were 9 for the nations. Right now you're preaching to the nations. And that moment was so amazing. And so my life, my story is hard. I think I was talking to Eugenia today, and she's like, it's like times where you're like emotional, you get angry, and you're just, there's a lot of trials that I have walked through. And then my husband finally did come out. And probably the hardest thing, even going through persecution in Iran, being threatened to be killed, even when I was advocating for my husband, meeting with heads of states. One time I chased down the Iranian president while he was in New York. And that's another story where the Iranian government was told the FBI that they were at the UN, they were at a hotel, they were like, the FBI told me, they're afraid of you. They don't know what you're going to do. And so all of those times and I was getting threats all the time. Like, I didn't know when I was going up to speak, if I was going to be like killed or what, because like at that time, Iranian government, I was getting calls all the time, like because I was calling out the Iranian government and I was getting a lot of threats. And so all those times of, and God used those times for me to remember what had happened in Iran, that my time is in God's hand. But all those times, the hardest time was when my husband, he was supposed to be in prison for about 10 years. He came out in 3. The hardest time was when he came out and he divorced me and moved on with another woman. And that was the most heartbreaking part of my journey. To this day, like, I would cry when I would talk about it. It's been 7 years. But it just felt, I was in a marriage that told me I was ugly and I was worthless and I was stupid. And then yet during his imprisonment, I was meeting with heads of state and they were saying, you're well-spoken. And the media was saying, wow, you're doing so good. You're not ugly. And so God used to build my self-esteem in him, my confidence in him. But all these years, my husband was telling me that, and he comes out and divorces me, and it just made me think I'm not worth fighting for. He didn't want to fight for our marriage, and all the lies came back. Even though 3 years, God was really building up my confidence in him, like, you're my child, you are not stupid, I've taken you before kings to share my gospel, I've given you that privilege. And so that I went through a time of really dark time of depression and just rubble. I didn't know where my life was headed. It just seemed like I knew where life was headed when I was married and had kids, and there was a goal, and all of a sudden when all of that fell apart, I just felt like I was just sitting in the middle of rubble and not knowing what to do, and I was just crying. And but God and his amazing grace, and then my dad, who was like a rock in my life, always there when I needed something. He passed away of COVID in 2020. And so that was that. I just went to a very low point where now I understand people that tell me about depression, mental illness, because until that time, I saw, having grown up in war, you can't really focus on your trauma. You have to shake it off. Like, my thing was like the book of Acts. I love that part where Paul gets bitten by a snake and he just shakes it off. And so in my life, I was like, oh, that hurt. I'm going to shake it off. I'm going to, not going to focus on it. But when my dad passed, I never really fell into like a deep time of depression and anxiety until my dad passed, and I couldn't shake it off. And it was a time of deep time of digging in my roots with God, and really, I couldn't move. I didn't want to eat. I had my kids, who usually I was like happy about. Nothing in life brought me joy, nothing. And I was just completely hopeless, darkness. And in that moment, God reached me. And in that moment, things started coming back from 20 years earlier that had died. Like the house church movement, we led thousands of people, but they had all separated. They'd gone their separate way. But I had poured into their life. I'd become their friends. But that connection had been lost over the years. I had become a mom. I was advocating for Saeed. I'd gone through a divorce. And slowly they all came back. And again, like these single moms, these people who'd come out of abuse, they're like, can you just teach us the Bible online to us? I started teaching this 10-year-old girl that used to be part of our youth group I'd seen her become a Christian. At that time, she was in her 20s, and within months, she was discipling 500 people as I was teaching online, and then she got arrested. And through that journey, and so I was here and trying to get her out, and through all of this, a ministry was born. I didn't ever want to step back into like ministry, but through trying to help someone else, this ministry was born. In Afghanistan, even a lot of Afghans go to Iran as refugees. There's a lot of Afghans in Iran, and there was a gentleman and a woman that I had become really good friends with 20 years earlier. He was Afghan, and he was a refugee in Iran, and he had become a Christian in Iran, and I had met him in the church, and he was, being, discipled in the Lord. And then a few years ago, God called him to go back to Afghanistan. And it was a few years before the Taliban took over Afghanistan again. And again, then I connected back with him and the people I knew from 20 years earlier. We started supporting him $100 a month. And he started using that $100, like he was giving $50 to educate Afghan children, especially the Christians. He was ministering to the Christians that were left behind, that was very scared of the Taliban that had taken over. And within a year and a half, we went from 5 people to over 1,000 people. And it wasn't just the Christians that were left behind; it was Afghans becoming Christian, which was shocking to me, because I'd never seen that. It's the same way I'd never seen Iranians become Christians until I went to Iran. Just seeing revival happen in Iran, and then now seeing this number of Afghans become Christians. And I partnered with a ministry called, actually it's the Chinese, the Iranians and the Chinese working together for the gospel, and Afghans. It's like all of us working together. And I work with a ministry called Back to Jerusalem. It really is not this. It's not, people confuse it with a Jewish thing. It's actually a vision of the Chinese to take the gospel through the 1040 window back to Jerusalem. And so we are part of that 1040 window of the unreached people group, Iran and Afghanistan. And we, they work all over, but those are the main countries that I work with. And so Eugene is going to come later and talk more about Back to Jerusalem, which we do a lot of work of taking Bibles into these countries. There's amazing things that you guys are going to learn today about how we do that. But I'm actually excited to be here because a lot of churches want me to say what I just said, just talk about missions, talk about how God's moving in the Middle East, how amazing it is with the gospel and how God's working. My journey is not just mission, it's the abuse I walked through that was so hard and so confusing. And so a lot of people say, just focus on mission, and you get so much more support if you don't touch abuse in the church. But over the years I've walked with Christ, I've seen that both are important to him. Defending the Christians that are being oppressed by governments and persecuted is as important to him, if not actually more, when people are oppressed using the name of Jesus. That's disgusting. That's to use his name to harm another believer and to say that, God's given me this authority to do this. You submit to me. God showed me that's actually where Jesus called people out, and that's what got him killed, was calling out the religious leaders. And that it's dear to God's heart. A lot of people want to hear just about mission, but Jesus wasn't just about preaching the gospel. He was also calling things out. So if we want to be followers of Jesus, both should be important to us. Mission and health in the church. The early church, and I'm not going to go into much. The early church, people were added to the church simply by seeing Christians love each other well. It says daily people were added to the church. So today we're going to have a panel with my friend Michelle and some others, and we'll talk more about that. Why is health and mission related together? Why should we care about both? But before we do that, I think either Benji's going to come up or Eugene's going to come up, or I think we're going to have worship.
Nagme, thank you so much for sharing. It's so incredible to hear how God works outside of our own regular circumstances. We're going to sing a couple more songs, and the first one is called Firm Foundation. And the whole point of the song is that Christ is our firm foundation. And it's so encouraging to hear Nagme's story, and through difficult times and situations, Christ has been her firm foundation. And we get to sing that and celebrate that together, and know that that's true for ourselves, as true for us as a community, that through tough situations in life, that Christ is still our firm foundation. And so, as you're able, would you stand and join us as we sing? Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. going to sing one more song. It's called Come As You Are, and this song is about just that. Jesus welcomes us to himself however we come, whether we come with joy and celebration, whether we come with sorrow and grief, we are welcome to come and sit at his feet. And so wherever you are this morning, know that Jesus welcomes you to himself. Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, O sinner, come near. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who stray. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are, come as you are, fall in his arms, come as you are. There's joy for the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home.
Thank you, band. You guys may be seated. We've got two more elements that are going to happen, but because the stories are going to be shared, we're actually going to cut the live stream. So goodbye, live stream. You guys will be talking with Matt for a bit. And I would like to invite Eugene up from Back to Jerusalem.
All right. Hey, like Benji just said, we are cutting the live stream. At this point of church, we are going to be sharing a couple of sensitive stories of folks who are in mission fields where their identity needs to be protected. I can't go into a ton of detail, unfortunately. I hope that you all understand. There are many safe places in the world where we can do ministry publicly and openly, and we have the freedom of religion. Some of the folks who are sharing today do not have such flexibility or are interacting with people groups who do not appreciate the fact that we have such flexibility. And so just for the safety of everyone involved, we are going to be ending our church online here today. I see we have some folks in the chat. We have Elaine and Alan. We have the Vessel for Honor Ministries, Caitlin, Debbie. So glad that you all could join us. I'm going to close with just a simple benediction today from Numbers 6, verse 22 to 26. This is something that the Lord gives to Moses in a time where the Israelites are going through a difficult time, wandering through the wilderness. Things seem hopeless, and there needs to be a reminder that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope. And so I'm going to put my hands out in a posture of receiving if you want to do the same. Number 6, 22 to 26 says, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." I want to thank you so much for joining us for Church Online. If you're looking for more, we have plenty more content on our page and new videos posted throughout the week. We're, of course, live here every Sunday at 10 a.m. and we hope to see you next week.